Today, we are here to talk about Cardfight Vanguard Divines Season 2. For those of you who don't know, I actually did a couple videos just covering a few of the episodes at a time for this series. So for that purpose, the way we're going to structure this video is the first half will be just sort of like a brief overview and my quick opinion for those interested in checking out Cardfight Vanguard Divines or maybe didn't start Season 2 yet. And then for the second half, we'll do all spoilers, talking about the things I did not get to just when covering the show while it was airing. So without further ado, quick premise review. The plot to Cardfight Vanguard Divines is we follow this kid, Akina. He takes care of his sick sister, Hikari, who's got generic every sick kid disease in every movie and TV show disease. And Akina gets a chance to enter a Cardfight Vanguard tournament where if he beats the other people in the tournament, he gets one wish, which he then naturally uses to save Hikari. So going into Season 2, naturally you think we gotta up the ante, up the stakes. How do we do that? Well, we're gonna do the first season, but more. What I mean by that is Season 1 features the tournament being run by a weird alien plush creature called Gabuelis. Now we have another weird alien plush creature, this one called Sybilt. And Sybilt decided to recruit her own 6 card fighters to face our main card fighters. Thus we have a 6-man first team to 4 victories wins tournament where one side is fighting for saving the Earth and the other side have been brainwashed into basically wanting to unleash all their inhibitions and basically just allow for Sybilt to do this to everyone else on Earth. Of note though, one of the destined ones is actually Akina's younger sister, Hikari. So this brings up an interesting premise. Who are all the destined ones? What's going on with Hikari? How do we deal with Sybilt? All of these questions will be very slowly answered through a 6-episode first half of the season, where every episode is you have our protagonist, you have our antagonist, you get all the antagonists' motivations and why they're doing this and backstory, versus our protagonist, who you're simply checking up on and seeing where they're going at in their arc, thus leading to every episode of the first half of the season feeling very undercooked and nothing really ever feeling like it's been fully fulfilled. Yeah, I'm just gonna get right on into it with this one. Most of the first half of this season just feels like filler. The destined ones are not very interesting. The show does not go out of their way to give them really interesting backstories or personalities. They just feel like henchmen who have, in some case, very loose, in some case, very strong connections to each of the fated ones. And yeah, it kind of just gives you this feeling like you're just tapping your foot, waiting for the Hikari stuff to start. And so logically, you'd assume they would sprinkle it throughout, right? Wrong. There's 2 or 3 scenes of Akina being like, hey, Hikari, want to talk? And her being like, fuck you! And that's it. You don't really build or develop the thing that is emotionally pulling the season through. They attempt to have like some mysteries going on in the backstory about Sybilt, and maybe one of our heroes has been possessed by Sybilt, and a couple different little things like that, but they're not very interesting. They, again, just like with the Hikari thing, none of it's ever developed. It's always stuff that gets brought up once or twice and is put in the background while we just sit through another card fight featuring another uninteresting new character. It's very clear these fights just exist to promote their new decks and sets. And many of you will say, well, it's a card game anime. That's the point. To which case I will say yes. However, when a card game anime is good, it's because it's taken the time to integrate showing off the toys into the plot, which, yeah, this does on a base level, but it's not really fleshed out very well or gone into very deeply. Everything is just, here it is, here it is, here it is. And that's not very fun or interesting. The only episode that I think really does a good job this season with this sort of like structure is ironically the one between the 2 freaking lyrical girls. Yes, the most hated nation in Vanguard has probably the best episode. Why? Because it did a good job of showing how our protagonist has grown and has developed in her arc, And it also does a very good job of giving an antagonist with a very realistic, understandable, and relatable backstory. And you understand how she becomes the way she is and why she does things the way she does and how that made her susceptible to Sybil. And you know what? It's really fucking good, but it's just one fucking episode in a sea of just stuff happening. So naturally, we should probably go into spoilers. My basic sum up is this season is first half not very interesting, second half is okay. We'll talk about that more in spoilers, but all in all, it's just kind of a whatever season. But yeah, no. So, where I left off last time in the spoiler videos, ironically, was Akina versus Hikari. So how's that fight? Actually, this one's pretty alright. I like what was being attempted here. I don't know if it's executed as well as it could have been under different circumstances, but I think the idea that Hikari felt guilty, that she felt bad, that the idea that so much of Akina's life has been taking care of her, that frustrates her, that guilt was becoming too much to bear. And when she learned the truth about the fated clash, it messed with her. It brought her to this new level of low, and it made her susceptible for Sybil. That's what allowed Sybil to take her over. Just like with the lyrical girl, we took the time to understand why Hikari is the way she is and how it leads to this. The emotional stake is not the world's at stake. I don't care about that crap. Well, the emotional stake is that Akina needs to reach her, but her self-loathing and frustration and anger at the world ends up being too much for him, and she wins. And so the question is, who's going to save her now? Frickin' future Hikari comes back. And you know what? As weird as that is, I kind of dig it. The thing is that, for starters, Hikari's actress really puts in 110% having to play both versions of herself like this. But what I think is very interesting here is future Hikari will never get that closure knowing if she made a difference, if she saved Akina, or if her timeline even still exists. She's stuck here not knowing. And she is now taking the time to tell her younger self that you've been given the opportunity to value what I never could. You get that relationship with Akina that I will never have. And you should take that opportunity, because even if yesterday sucked and was bad, you get it tomorrow. And you should value that. And that's ultimately what reaches Hikari and saves the day. I think that's really nice and really well done. And then it's over. The entire emotional buildup of the season is gone. And unfortunately, we still have more episodes to go, where effectively what happens next is Sybil comes out of the plush, is like, fuck you all, is beaten by Gabuelas, who just evaporates her. Okay, just death. And then it turns out that future Sybil was living in future Hikari, and that's the reason Hikari was sick all her life. And future Sybil, it turns out half of her power was with Now, thus resulting in her being able to possess Now and making Now into Goth Mommy. And is like, ha! Now I will accomplish my evil goal with the power of some random 19-year-old woman. Don't question it. Don't question it. What I will say about all this is that I really like the idea for Akina that Now is always portrayed as this older sister type who is always there for Akina, is always his emotional support, always there for whatever he needs. And that's now been taken away from him. He now doesn't have that rock in his life. And you do see how that instantly affects him and how he just wants to save her. I think that's a really neat idea. Also, there is just the aspect of, from a card game perspective, the threat level of it. Now, as we've seen, is a very powerful card fighter. Hell, playing at the professional level, for crying out loud. So the idea that brain that's been fine-tuned for Vanguard is now under the control of someone who wants to use Vanguard for evil. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And you know what? Varga, this super powerful, insane card in real life that I fucking hate and I think is ruining the format. The idea that, yeah, I'm going to make it stronger, even though I think the card's kind of mid and doesn't really fix any of Varga's issues as a deck. The fact that, yeah, that's a thing. It's good. It's fine. Unfortunately, just like everything else in this season, because of the pacing of this show, it's just another thing that happens. It's our big final thing that happens, but we have to waste an episode on backstory. And then we have to waste an episode on the main Destin 1 dude getting a new magic boss monster and building it up only to then, like, have it lose 5 minutes later? Like, all of this is just being thrown against the wall at, like, a pace that gives none of it any time to really, like, resonate. And then, naturally, Akina just shows up, new Raziel in tow, beats Sybilt. Now is fine. I would have loved it if Now's clothes didn't change. Like, Sybilt's weird alien magic is gone, so she's stuck dressed like this. And she's like, what the fuck, man? This top was expensive. I think that'd be kind of funny. But no, she just comes back, and that's the end of the season. And next arc is the deluxe again, which kind of ruined the last show, so I don't have a ton of faith. And Drajul guy is back. So yeah, that was Cardfight Vanguard Divine Season 2. While I can't say it's like the worst thing I've ever seen and that it's completely devoid of creativity, I will say that just the need to play things as safe and simple as straight as possible kind of ruins it. It never really goes anywhere with any of the ideas it sets up. It treats everything as just like a thing that happens rather than anything with any real depth. And it kind of shows in the final product as I'm kind of just sitting here being like, okay. But yeah, those were my thoughts on Cardfight Vanguard Divine Season 2. Obviously, I will check out the next arc when it comes out in January. Will it be better? Will it be worse? Who knows? Time will tell. But as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me next time when we talk about peak card game anime.